Hello everyone, this is Matt. I thought I'd record another podcast episode tonight. So tonight I wanted to share one of my poems with you. It's a more recent one that I wrote in the last few years. It's called I Want to Say Something. So here it is. I want to say something, but don't know what to say. So here I am, stumbling along, my words like ill-fitting shoes, on a road leading somewhere, on a trail leading nowhere, to resolution or the grave. I wear my masks like armor, and play many roles on the stage, as I look to break the wall and speak the truth. Can anyone see me and know me? The bone beneath the skin, the soul behind the curtain. I wrestle with devils that appear as angels, and with angels that appear as devils. And how can I tell the difference between holy and profane, when they caress and hold each other, when they are as lovers? I want to do something, but don't know what to do. So here I am, wandering along, my quest through cosmos and heart, looking for stars to chart my path, looking for hands to hold in the dark, for answers that feel like home. So, I think I wanted to try to share some of the things that come to mind with this poem. And I think I'll go through each stanza and just share some thoughts on each one. So, with the first stanza, I guess it's funny that I don't really know what to say when I'm talking about a poem where I say I don't know what to say. Sorry about that. A little tired. There really are a lot of times in my life where I don't know what to say, and where words just don't feel like enough. You know, like I've had some of my closest friends have been going through a lot of struggles lately. You know, a lot of us are right now. You know, with the pandemic and just the uncertainty that a lot of us are feeling, just about the future. But I don't always know what to say to people that I care about that are going through things that sometimes I can understand and sometimes I can't, at least not fully. And it's hard sometimes to feel like feel like I can have anything to offer. And then, I say that road leading somewhere, trail leading nowhere, to resolution of the grave. And it's like, sometimes I wonder, does it, whether there's a point to all this or there isn't. I was thinking, it makes me think about a couple things about to try to think more positively, I guess. I recently finished reading this book called The Wind is My Mother written by this Native American shaman. And he had a lot of things to say in the book that resonated or made me think, but I think the part that's probably stuck with me the most was what he said towards the end about everyone has something to offer, no matter how small it might be. Like he even told this story about these prisoners he worked with. And while they were in prison, they started this art project where they would make art, and they would sell the art, but they would all the money that they made from selling the art, they turned around and gave it towards this fund for children and their families to go to Disneyland. And so, the kids could have a good time, and those men in prison, it meant a lot to them, knowing that, a lot of them had their own children, that they couldn't see, and it made them feel good to be able to give something. And these were guys, these were criminals in prison, but they still had something to offer. And so that, it can feel, it can feel kind of discouraging sometimes when you feel like that you're just kind of stumbling along and you don't know whether you're really offering anything, whether you're really going anywhere. But you can, no matter where you are, no matter who you are, you can make an impact in the world, and a positive impact. You can do some good. And that gives me hope, I guess. And the other thing, it also makes me think about, I just finished listening to this interview by Aurora, who I've mentioned before in one of my earlier episodes, the song of hers that really touched me at the concert I went to, which was the last concert I went to. But in this interview, it's this really wonderful interview on this YouTube channel called Life Keys that she did, I think a couple days ago. And one of the things she said was, there's times where it feels like nothing matters, but then there's times when it feels like everything matters. And that kind of spoke to me. It's kind of what I was, I guess, trying to say in that first part of the poem. There's times where you feel like you're on a road leading somewhere, and there's times you feel like you're on a trail leading nowhere. You're wondering if there's going to be resolution, or it's just going to be the end, or that nothing will matter in the end. But I guess I try to hold on to that, I hold on to that, that hope or that conviction, I guess, that we all do have something to offer, and that everything matters. So, with the second part, I was the second stanza of the poem, I was trying to say that, I wear a lot of masks and play a lot of roles, I guess, in my life. It's like, I don't intend to. It's not always conscious on my part. Like, I have different sides of myself. I have my work self. I have my self with certain friends. There's certain friends, like I bring my humor out more. I bring my my more masculine side out, or my more feminine side out, or there's people I joke around with more. There's people I'm more serious with. And I feel like I have different facets of myself. I feel like I have kind of the more grown up, 38-year-old me, and then I have like, my child self and everything in between. Like, I feel like all the people that I've been at different times of my life, my child self, my teenage self, my 20-something self, my 30s-something self, like they're all still inside of me, part of who I am, and they come out at different times. But there's those other times where I feel disintegrated, like I'm not fully integrated, like I'm still trying to pull together all the different parts of myself, all the different facets into a whole person. Like I'm still working through that, and sometimes I feel inauthentic and like I'm not genuine or real enough, and like I'm just kind of playing different parts with different people. I'm not always being my true self, and there's that desire for me to speak the truth and to really be myself. And I remember Aurora was talking about that in her interview. That was another one of the things she was talking about, was how she always felt like she was someone who was really open with her emotions. And she noticed that a lot of people weren't. A lot of people kept it to themselves. They hid it on the inside. And she said that was one of the reasons why she made music, was because it was a way of speaking the truth about our emotions in a language people could understand. And music is she feels like music is one of those few languages that we have left to be able to do that. I hope that poetry is another one of those languages. It's kind of more of a dying art. Music is a lot more popular with most people. A lot of people don't read, or not as many people read poetry compared to people who listen to music. But I think that's one of the reasons I try to write poetry sometimes, is it's a way of trying to express what's inside of me in a language that hopefully others can understand. And, I like I say, can anyone see me and know me? The bone beneath the skin, the soul behind the curtain. It's like I want to be seen. And that was another one of those things that Aurora talked about, was how people want to be seen. We want to be known. We want others to see us and know us for who we really are, and love us for who we really are, and accept us for who we really are. And that's something I can resonate with, and I imagine a lot of us can resonate with. In the third stanza, I say, I wrestle with devils that appear as angels, and with angels that appear as devils. How can I tell the difference between holy and profane? And that's something else I struggle with. It's hard to know, especially in a time like this, where everybody's talking about fake news and questioning the media, and where people have a lot of biases. We all have them. We all have our blind spots and things we don't know or understand. And it's easy to get things mixed up. It's not always easy to see what's right, what's wrong, what's good and what's evil. And I think the truth is, a lot of times those things are mingled together. Like I said, when they caress and hold each other, when they're as lovers, they're just kind of all mixed together. I think it's important that we try to see the world with more nuance, try to see it with more complexity. But at the same time, you don't want to get to the point where you just, where you don't see, it's like there has to be some kind of separation in some ways, where you need to know what's right and what's wrong. But the truth is, there's a lot of times where right and wrong are kind of mixed together, and it's hard to separate them, especially with people, because people are so complex, have so many different sides to them, and so many different, we can do a kind thing and a cruel thing in the same day, in the same day, or even at the same moment, and I have family and friends and people I care about that there's times they've hurt me, and there's times they've helped me. I know there's times I've hurt people and times I've helped people, and I feel like we're all kind of a mix of darkness and light, and that's because the world, in large part, society and culture is created by us, by human beings. It's going to reflect us. It's going to reflect the fact that we're all a mix of dark and light. Like I talked about in my last episode about how I'm a mix of things. And that's true of all of us, I think, to some extent or another. Sure, there's going to be people that have more light than dark, and there's going to be people who have more dark than light. because they choose to follow the path of one or the other more than the other. But I think we're all mixed to some extent, even if we might fall in different places on the spectrum. But I don't think anybody's 100% one or 100% the other. Although it can certainly look that way from the outside, even to ourselves. And that was another thing that Aurora talked about, was kind of like I was talking about in my last episode about loving ourselves. She talked about having not being too hard on ourselves, being kind to ourselves, and realizing that, not realizing that we don't have to expect too much of ourselves, because we're only human. And I think that's part of it, is that complexity of us. That I think that's part of it, is accepting that complexity, and not seeing ourselves as any more or less than what we are, which is human. And but it's still difficult to just be able to understand. And that was one of the things that Aurora was talking about too, was about understanding, and how important it is that we try to understand each other. And I think that's a big part of it, is understanding the reality that things are all just kind of mixed together so much of the time, and it's hard to separate everything. Even people that we see as totally evil or totally irredeemable can have some good qualities in certain moments. They might have some kind of virtue about them. Like today I was talking with my wife Kaylin about, or I just mentioned her because I was reading about Hayao Miyazaki, the famous director for Studio Ghibli. It's this Japanese animation studio that probably most people have heard of, but it's kind of like the Japanese equivalent of Disney. Maybe not necessarily in their style, but in their prominence in the country, just how successful they are. But anyway, Hayao Miyazaki, he's a genius. You watch his films, the guy is a genius. He's brilliant. But I always thought it was kind of sad when I found out really kind of how bad of a father he is to his son. It's just kind of discouraging to hear just how hard he is on his son, and because his son's made some movies too, but he's really just very dismissive of him, and really hard on him, and it's just kind of sad to see. And it's just a reminder that, or I've heard the same thing about Gandhi, that Gandhi was this guy that, he's kind of upheld as this paragon of humanity, but from what I had heard, he was kind of a jerk to his family, or he was very, he wasn't really there for them. Although, it's kind of hard to be in more than one place at a time, if you're trying to get out there and save the world, so to speak. You might leave your family or your friends behind because you're so focused on that. And then if you're so focused the other way around on your family and your friends, it's hard for you to be out there in the world helping the world, which is kind of, I feel like that's where I am at. But there's different sides to people, and it's kind of, I was trying to say the same thing there that I was trying to say in my last episode with my last poem. So that's kind of what that's about, just how hard that is sometimes to separate. But I think it's, the negative side of that is just that difficulty, how hard it is to separate everything, to know right from wrong all the time. And I think you can to some extent, but you always have to remember, there's so many different sides to different things, and sometimes it's better to approach issues with a scalpel rather than a hammer, you know. But the positive side of it is, is just remembering that complexity, especially with people, so that you have more, try to have more understanding, and maybe even more compassion, or at least try to, because the world is complicated, and it's difficult, and it's, like Aurora said, sometimes the world's shit, especially in times like this. Anyways, so the last part of my poem, it's like I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. And that's something I also struggle with. But I try to remember, going back to what the author of The Wind Is My Mother said. His name is Bearheart, by the way, the Native American shaman. And how he was saying that we all have something to offer. And it's doesn't necessarily have to be like some earth-shattering thing that we have to be, somebody famous or someone with a lot of power or influence, that we have to be like, that we have to be like, even someone like Aurora, who's a very popular and beloved musician, or someone like Gandhi, who was, someone who kind of shook the world, or even Hayao Miyazaki with his films, or Martin Luther King, people that are widely known and respected, and their work has had a large impact on the world, or a lot of people. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. You can be a friend to someone, even just one person. You can try to put your voice out there, and maybe not a lot of people will listen to you, but maybe one or two people will, and they'll be encouraged by what you have to say. Or you can you can still make a difference, even if it's in a small way. Like, I remember I used to sponsor this girl in Zambia for a while, through this organization called Children's International. And I did it for a number of years, until eventually her and her family just kind of disappeared. Like, they sent me this letter that apparently, it was this girl named Mama Chalu, and in Zambia, and eventually her and her family just kind of moved somewhere else, and they couldn't get in contact with them. So I dropped the sponsorship, and to be honest, I mean, I wasn't really sure about the whole thing, because I never heard back from her, and it was kind of confusing for me. I just hope that it was legit, and that I did help them in some way. I mean, they sent me pictures. I was able to send money to get her a mattress to sleep on, and more food for her and her family, and it, helped her get through school, and, so I'm hoping it helped in some way. But anyways, one of the things in that company is, they had this quote or motto, and they said, I'm only one, so I cannot do everything, but still I am one, so I can do something. And it's something I try to remember. None of us can single-handedly save the world, but we can do something. Like Aurora was talking about that when she sees the news, she gets so depressed by all the injustice in the world, and just how screwed up everything is. It can be overwhelming, and even someone like Aurora, who through her music has, and her fame, she's someone, like I said, she's someone who's very popular. Maybe not everyone has heard of her, but she has millions of fans, throughout the world, and she's growing in popularity. But even someone like her, she feels that. So it's like, you're just someone like me, or probably most of you listening, or let's be honest, all of you listening. I don't think anybody famous listens to my or is going to listen to my podcast. I'm just a regular guy. But anyways, most of us aren't even in that kind of position. We're not famous or have a lot of power and influence, so it can feel overwhelming. We're hearing about different issues, like racism or the environment or obviously the pandemic and everything that's going on. It just can feel so overwhelming. But like with Aurora, through her music, she's able to help people. And like she helped me, especially, at that concert, it moved me and spoke to me. And, I was kind of having a rough time that night, and it really encouraged me. So I left feeling a little better than I otherwise would have. And I guess my hope is, through trying to be a friend to, people here and there, through my poetry or even through these podcasts or different little things I do, even if I might not reach a very wide audience, I might just, maybe it's just a handful of people that hear what I have to say or maybe get something out of it, then at least I'm doing something. Or even my work, I'm a janitor. I collect trash and clean toilets and vacuum floors and dust for a living. It's very, janitorial is one of the kind of lower ranking jobs in the world, that tend to be looked down on. But I'm providing a service. Sure, I get paid for it, but I'm providing a service that's necessary. So at least I'm doing something with that. I'm being a contributing member of society. And I think all of us, wherever we are, can offer something, even if it doesn't seem like a lot. Even if maybe we might only be able to help one or two people around us, just something. And that, that gives me hope and encourages me at least try to look at it in that way. But anyways, so here I am wandering along my quest through cosmos and heart, looking to stars, for stars to chart my path, looking for hands to hold in the dark, for answers that feel like home. So yeah, like most of my life, I've just been kind of wandering along, and I have had my more mystical moments where I'm trying to think about the whole bigger picture. Like recently, I was watching the Netflix series Surviving Death, which some of you might have heard of. But in Surviving Death, they talk about near-death experiences, mediums, signs from the dead, ghosts, and deathbed visions, and then reincarnation. And they're talking about all these different things. And, a lot of the different people that share their experiences, they talk about how it helped them to see there's a bigger world around them. And I know that there's people that are skeptical of those things. Some things more than others, and I am too at times. I'm not somebody that I'm not somebody that just is completely naive or gullible. I understand that there's people that are taking advantage of people, playing kind of just like with a lot of things, people will use religion or spirituality or whatever to con people, and so I get that there's that going on, but I don't think it's fair to say that that's all of it. I've had my own experiences. I know people that I trust, that I know aren't shitting me. People that have had their own experiences. But anyways, that just sense that there's a wider world around us, there's some greater meaning or purpose to our lives, I think that's also part of something I've struggled with, but that I try to believe that's part of it. That, there is that wider world, there is that greater meaning or purpose to our lives. And part of that drive is what keeps me, looking for stars to chart my path, looking for hands to hold the dark, for answers that feel like home. I'm trying to find those things that can help me to have to find that meaning and purpose in my life, to help keep me going. I don't know if I've shared this before, but I was sharing this with I was sharing this with a friend of mine recently. The answers that feel like home. So there's this series of books I really enjoy called Warm Bodies by Isaac Marion. And there was a movie for the first book, which was a pretty good movie. Wasn't as good as the book, in my opinion. But anyways, there's a series of the books, and it's one of my favorite series of books. I'd say probably the first book is still my favorite. Well, probably my favorite scene in the first book. So the basic premise of the books is it's a zombie that falls in love with a human, which is on the outside. If you hear about it, it sounds like Twilight, like a vampire falling in love with a human woman. But it's very different, and the basic concept is in the books is zombies. The zombie virus, or quote unquote virus, isn't really biological. It's more like spiritual. And they eventually find out that the cure for the virus, or the plague, or whatever you want to call it, is helping those people reconnect with their humanity. Like somehow memory, by helping them to remember who they are, it can bring them back. They become human again. And there's some exceptions to that, where if they're too far gone, they just turn into these things called bonies. The nickname, they basically just skeletons that have lost any sense of their humanity and are now just monsters. But anyways, it's possible in the story for them to find their humanity again and become human again. Anyways, so the main character is this zombie named R. That's all you can remember, is the first letter of his name is R. And he falls in love with this human woman called Julie, and they connect, and he kind of follows her around, and she's obviously freaked out with this whole situation, but she can see that the importance of this, that there's a potential cure, or a way that zombies can become human again. But anyways, there's a scene where he's in her room, and he's kind of laying on the floor, and she's laying in her bed, or sitting on her bed, and talking to him about all the problems in the world and everything that's going on, and just not having the answers. And she, on the ceiling of her room, there's all these different letters and numbers and pictures and different things that she's pasted up on her ceiling, including, I think, some lyrics from some Beatles songs. I can't remember which one, but anyway, he's still coming back to himself, so he hasn't relearned how to read yet. But he knows there are letters on the ceiling, and I remember Isaac Marion, I can't remember exactly how he writes it, but it's something like that he didn't know what the answers were, but he could feel their existence. It's like he knew that the answers existed. He knew that those letters existed, even though he couldn't understand them. And he was kind of comparing it to just what it's like to be human, that we can feel like the answers are there, but we just don't understand them yet. It can feel like there aren't any answers, but you can still have faith, I guess, or hope that they are there, even if you can't see them or understand them. You can feel them, that they're there, that they exist. And that's something I guess I try to hold on to. And the same could be said, I guess, for those stars to chart my path, that there are those things. There are those stars that can show me the way. Because I've had some experiences where those things have kind of come up in my life to kind of help chart my course, so to speak. Or looking for hands to hold in the dark. There's people that come along in my life and help me through the dark. So maybe the same for answers, the answers that feel like home, that, that like fit like a key into my heart. I don't know how to explain it. But yeah, it's that's a lot of different things, I guess, that I've talked about, and I guess you could say I've had a lot of things on my mind. But I guess I just wanted to say something. So I probably said, I know I've said more than just one thing. I've probably said a lot of things, and this is probably, I checked the time, this is already over a half hour, so I should probably wrap this up. But yeah, I just wanted to share that and share some of the thoughts that it brought up for me. And I hope that some of the things that I've said, that whoever's listening, that it'll speak to you in some way, or encourage or help you in some way, maybe. I hope. And I hope that whoever's listening, that you're doing okay, and thank you for listening, and